Welcome. Tonight, we invite you to step softly into a world blanketed in white, a world where the air is crisp, the silence profound, and every breath is a visible wisp in the cold. Imagine the landscape transformed by winter, forests draped in snow, the ground hidden beneath a thick icy quilt, and the sky heavy with the promise of more to come. In this world, every sound is muffled, every movement deliberate, and survival is a daily act of ingenuity. For Native Americans, winter was not simply a season to endure, but a time that demanded deep knowledge of the land, careful preparation, and a profound respect for the forces of nature. Every aspect of life, from the way food was gathered and stored to the construction of shelters, was shaped by the challenges and opportunities that winter presented. Settle in, find comfort, and let the world outside fade away. Picture yourself inside a traditional Native American winter tent, such as a teepee or wigwam. The fire at the center is not just for warmth, it is the heart of the home, a gathering place for family and community. The teepee, for example, was constructed from long wooden poles arranged in a conical shape, covered with large, carefully sewn animal hides, often bison or elk. These hides were tanned and stitched with sinew, creating a weather-resistant barrier that blocked wind and retained heat. The interior was arranged with practicality and comfort in mind. Sleeping areas were lined with thick fur rugs, and blankets made from animal hides were wrapped tightly around shoulders, providing both warmth and a sense of security. Children played quietly on fur rugs, their laughter mingling with the soft crackle of the fire. Every detail, from the stitching of the hides to the arrangement of sleeping spaces, was designed for comfort and survival, reflecting generations of accumulated wisdom. Tonight, we embark on a calming journey, an exploration of how Native Americans survived the harshest winters in tents without freezing. But this is more than a tale of endurance. It is a testament to adaptation, ingenuity, and the deep connection between people and the land. The teepee, for example, was ingeniously designed to be both portable and warm, with a conical shape that shed snow and allowed smoke to escape through a vent at the top. The adjustable smoke flaps could be manipulated to control airflow, ensuring that the fire's warmth was retained while smoke was vented safely. Wigwams and earth lodges, used by other tribes, were built with thick layers of bark, reeds, or earth for insulation. Wigwams often featured a domed frame of bent saplings covered with mats or bark, while earth lodges were partially dug into the ground and covered with sod, providing exceptional insulation. Each shelter was a product of centuries of observation, experimentation, and respect for the environment, tailored to the specific climate and resources of each region. For thousands of years, Native American communities across North America faced winters that could be both breathtakingly beautiful and brutally unforgiving. The biting wind, deep snow, and long dark nights tested not only the body, but the spirit. Elders played a crucial role, passing down survival skills and stories that taught younger generations how to read animal tracks in the snow, how to find edible plants even in winter, and how to prepare and store food for the lean months. Food preservation was a sophisticated process. Meats were dried or smoked over low fires, berries and roots were dried or stored in underground caches, and nuts were gathered and kept in woven baskets. Meals were often simple but nourishing. Dried meats, berries, and roots, carefully preserved during the warmer seasons. The act of sharing food and warmth was not just practical, but deeply spiritual, reinforcing bonds of kinship and community. The winter months were also a time for teaching, storytelling, and the passing on of cultural traditions, ensuring that knowledge was never lost. Yet, through wisdom passed down by elders and a profound respect for nature's rhythms, these communities learned to thrive. They built ingenious shelters, teepees, wigwams, earth lodges, each designed to withstand the cold, conserve heat, and offer sanctuary from the storm. The construction of these shelters was a communal effort. Women scraped and prepared hides, men shaped wooden poles, and children gathered kindling for the fire. The hides were layered thickly over the frames, sometimes with snow packed around the base for extra insulation. In some regions, additional layers of bark or woven mats were added to further block the wind. The result was a living space that could remain warm even as temperatures outside plunged far below freezing. The The process of building and maintaining these shelters was itself a form of education, with each generation learning the skills and techniques necessary for survival. Inside, the air was scented with wood smoke and pine. The fire's warmth mingled with the closeness of family, and the walls, crafted from animal hides and natural materials, held back the chill. Ingenious ventilation systems allowed smoke to escape, while keeping heat inside. The placement of the fire was carefully considered to maximize warmth and minimize risk. People slept close together, sharing body heat, and used layers of hides and furs as bedding. Even the smallest details, like the way the entrance flap was positioned or the use of snow as an insulating barrier, reflected generations of accumulated knowledge and adaptation to the environment. The interior of the tent was often organized with a central fire pit, surrounded by sleeping and storage areas, and the floor was lined with insulating materials such as pine boughs or woven mats. These strategies ensured that warmth was conserved and that the living space remained comfortable even during the coldest nights. Outside, the world was transformed. Trees bowed under the weight of snow, rivers frozen in time, and the land itself seemed to hold its breath. But within the tent, there was life. Stories told, songs sung, and hope kindled anew each night. The contrast between the harshness of the winter landscape and the warmth of the shelter was profound. The howl of a distant wolf or the sparkle of moonlight on snowdrifts served as reminders of the wild beauty and danger just beyond the tent walls. Yet inside, the community found safety, comfort, and a sense of belonging. The tent was not just a physical shelter but a space for emotional and spiritual renewal, where the bonds of family and community were strengthened through shared experience. These were nights of learning and connection. Elders shared tales of ancestors who braved even harsher winters, of animals whose wisdom guided survival, and of the sacred balance between taking from the land and giving back. Storytelling was more than entertainment. It was a vital means of passing on knowledge, values, and history. Children listened with wide eyes as elders described the migration of buffalo, the habits of wolves, and the lessons learned from the land itself. These stories reinforce the importance of respect, gratitude, and stewardship, ensuring that each generation understood their place within the natural world. Through these stories, children learned not only practical survival skills, but also the spiritual and ethical principles that guided their communities. This is not just a story of survival, but of wisdom, respect for nature, and vibrant life within winter's icy grip. We'll discover warmth in community, cleverness in shelter, and a spirit that burned bright against the coldest nights. The simple act of lying together on blankets, listening to the wind outside, and feeling the steady warmth of the fire was a reminder of the power of togetherness. Gratitude was expressed not only for the food and shelter but for the lessons learned and the bonds strengthened through adversity. The winter season, with all its challenges, became a time for reflection, gratitude, and the reaffirmation of community values. Take a deep breath. Let go of the day's concerns. Open your mind to these stories of resilience and ingenuity. There's nothing you need to do but listen, learn, and relax. The journey into winter's embrace begins now. As the first light of dawn breaks over the snowy camp, hope and determination shine in the faces of those who have endured another night. Their story is one of adaptation, community, and the enduring human spirit, a story we are privileged to share tonight. Through their example, we are reminded that even in the harshest conditions, human beings can find warmth, meaning, and connection, if they work together, respect the land, and honor the wisdom of those who came before. For Native Americans, winter survival began with the creation of a home that was not only a physical refuge, but a carefully crafted sanctuary in harmony with the land and climate. Shelter was far more than a barrier against the cold. It was a living embodiment of generations of accumulated wisdom, resourcefulness, and cultural tradition. The design and construction of these homes were the result of centuries of close observation of the environment, experimentation, and adaptation to the specific challenges of each region. Every aspect, from the selection and preparation of materials to the orientation of the doorway and the arrangement of the interior, was guided by a deep understanding of local weather patterns, available resources, and the social needs of the community. These shelters were not static. They evolved as new knowledge was gained and as families responded to changing conditions, ensuring that each generation was better equipped to face the harshest winters. On the vast, wind-swept Great Plains, the teepee was a masterpiece of engineering, perfectly adapted to the region's extreme weather and nomadic lifestyle. Its conical shape was meticulously designed to deflect the relentless winter winds, allowing them to flow smoothly around the structure and preventing dangerous drafts or structural collapse. The frame was constructed from long, straight lodgepole pines which were carefully selected for their strength and flexibility. These poles were lightweight enough to be transported over long distances, yet sturdy enough to withstand heavy snow and strong gusts. The portability of the teepee was crucial for plains tribes, such as the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Blackfoot, who followed bison herds across hundreds of miles. The entire structure could be disassembled, packed onto a horse or dog travois, and reassembled in a matter of hours, allowing families to move quickly in response to changing seasons or the movement of game. The teepee's design also allowed for easy expansion or contraction, with additional poles and hides added for larger families or removed for smaller groups. The outer covering of the teepee was made from buffalo hides, which were expertly tanned, softened, and sewn together using sinew or plant fibers. These hides provided exceptional insulation, trapping heat inside, while keeping out the biting cold and wind. In the depths of winter, families would add extra layers of hides or even line the interior with additional furs for maximum warmth. The seams were overlapped and carefully stitched to prevent any drafts from entering, and the bottom edges could be weighted down with stones or snow to seal out the cold. At the top of the teepee, adjustable smoke flaps allowed for precise control of ventilation, enabling families to maintain a fire for warmth and cooking without filling the interior with smoke. The interior was thoughtfully arranged, with sleeping areas and storage spaces organized around the perimeter, and a central fire pit, providing both heat and a place to prepare food. The teepee was not just a shelter, it was a symbol of family unity, mobility, and the deep relationship between people and the land, with every detail reflecting a balance between practicality and cultural meaning. In the dense snow-laden forests of the Northeast, the wigwam was the preferred winter dwelling, ingeniously crafted to withstand the region's heavy precipitation and frigid temperatures. Construction began with a framework of young, flexible saplings, often willow, birch, or ash, carefully bent into a dome or oval shape and lashed together with strips of bark, roots, or animal sinew. Over this sturdy frame, layers of bark, woven mats or reeds were added, each chosen for its insulating and waterproof qualities. Tribes such as the Wampanoag, Ojibwe, and Abenaki built wigwams that could endure the weight of deep snow and the onslaught of freezing rain, using the abundant resources of the surrounding forests. Birch or elm bark was typically stripped in large, intact sheets during the spring or summer, then stored for use in winter construction. These sheets were overlapped like shingles to shed water and snow, while mats woven from cattails or reeds provided additional insulation and could be removed or replaced as needed. The construction process was often a communal effort, with families and neighbors working together to gather materials, shape the frame, and secure the coverings. The domed shape of the wigwam was not only structurally strong, capable of bearing the weight of heavy snow without collapsing, but also highly efficient at retaining heat. Inside, the floor and walls were lined with animal furs, woven mats, and sometimes even layers of moss or grass, creating a cozy and comfortable environment. The central fire pit, vented through a small adjustable opening at the top, was the heart of the home, providing warmth, light, and a place for cooking. Families would gather around the fire to share stories, prepare food, and pass down traditions during the long winter nights. Wigwams could be built for single families or expanded to accommodate larger groups, with additional frames and coverings added as needed. The design was highly adaptable, with removable panels for summer ventilation and extra layers for winter protection, allowing families to live comfortably year-round in a challenging climate. In the arid and often frigid winters of the Southwest, the Navajo hogan stood as a remarkable blend of practicality, environmental adaptation, and spiritual significance. Built from thick logs, often juniper or ponderosa pine, stacked in a circular or octagonal pattern and packed with earth, the hogan's massive walls acted as thermal batteries, absorbing the sun's warmth during the day and releasing it slowly through the cold desert nights. The round or octagonal shape was deeply symbolic, representing the universe and the cyclical nature of life, while the doorway was always oriented to the east to greet the rising sun, a daily act of renewal and reverence. The construction of a hogan was guided by strict tradition, with specific prayers, songs, and rituals marking each stage of the process. The roof, made from layers of logs, brush, and earth or sod, provided further insulation, making the hogan comfortable in both winter and summer extremes. The thick earthen walls also protected against wind, snow, and even summer heat, creating a stable and nurturing environment for families. Building a hogan was a communal event, with extended families and neighbors coming together to gather materials, raise the frame, and pack the walls with earth. The central fire, set in a shallow pit, was the focal point of the interior, providing warmth, light, and a place for cooking. The thick earthen roof and walls shielded the inhabitants from the harshest winter cold, while the structure itself served as a sacred space for ceremonies, healing, and family gatherings. Every detail, from the placement of the door to the choice of materials, carried deep meaning, reflecting a worldview in which home, land, and spirit were inseparable. The hogan was not just a dwelling, but a living symbol of harmony with the earth and the interconnectedness of all things. In the unforgiving Arctic, where temperatures could plunge far below zero and resources were scarce, the Inuit developed the igloo, a shelter made entirely from snow, the most abundant material available. By using long, curved knives, called panna, skilled builders would cut blocks of compacted snow and carefully stack them in a spiral, each block angled to create a self-supporting dome. The snow, though cold to the touch, was an exceptional insulator, trapping air within its structure and reflecting body heat back into the living space. The entrance tunnel, dug below the main floor, acted as a cold trap, preventing frigid air from entering the main chamber and helping to maintain a surprisingly warm interior. Igloos could be constructed in just a few hours by experienced hands, and their size and complexity varied depending on their purpose, from small temporary shelters for hunters to large, multi-room structures for families or communal gatherings. Despite being built from frozen water, the igloo's thick, compacted snow walls provided remarkable insulation, often raising the interior temperature to just below freezing, or even higher with the help of body heat and a small oil lamp. Sleeping platforms, raised above the floor and lined with animal skins and furs, offered additional warmth and comfort. The igloo was a testament to the Inuits' profound understanding of their environment, transforming the very substance that defined their world, snow, into a safe, warm, and communal space. The knowledge and skills required to build and maintain igloos were passed down through generations, with elders teaching children the precise techniques for cutting, shaping, and stacking snow blocks, ensuring the survival of their people in one of the planet's most extreme climates. Each shelter, whether the mobile tipi of the plains, the sturdy wigwam of the northeast, the sacred hogan of the southwest, or the ingenious igloo of the Arctic, represented a unique and highly effective response to the universal challenge of surviving winter. The choice of materials, buffalo hide, bark, earth, or snow, was dictated not only by what was available, but by a deep respect for the land and its resources. These designs were dynamic, evolving over time. As new ideas were shared between tribes, new materials became available, or environmental conditions changed. The incredible diversity of indigenous winter shelters across North America is a testament to the creativity, adaptability, and resilience of native peoples who transformed the challenges of winter into opportunities for innovation, community, and cultural expression. These homes were far more than mere structures. They were living testaments to adaptation, ingenuity, and the intergenerational transmission of knowledge. The process of building a shelter was a communal act, involving the entire family and often the wider community. Elders played a crucial role, sharing stories, demonstrating techniques, and teaching children how to select the best materials, shape the framework, and ensure every seam was tight against the cold. Through these hands-on lessons, children learned not only the practical skills needed for survival, but also the values of cooperation, patience, respect for nature, and gratitude for the land's gifts. The act of building and maintaining a home became a powerful way to reinforce cultural identity and ensure the survival of both people and tradition. Ingenious design and deep environmental knowledge allowed Native Americans to transform even the coldest, most forbidding landscapes into places of warmth, life, and community. These shelters were more than just protection from the elements. They were the heart of winter survival, blending practicality, artistry, and profound cultural meaning. In every region, the winter home was a source of pride, a foundation for family and community life, and a living example of how knowledge, cooperation, and respect for nature could turn the harshest winters into seasons not just of endurance, but of thriving and belonging. For Native Americans living on the vast plains and in the dense northern forests, surviving the harsh winter months demanded not only resilience but also a sophisticated understanding of how to generate, conserve, and distribute heat within their shelters. The fire, often regarded as the spiritual and practical heart of the home, was central to this strategy. Whether in a teepee, wigwam, or earth lodge, the fire was always positioned at the center of the dwelling. This placement was intentional. It allowed heat to radiate evenly in all directions, ensuring that every person, regardless of where they sat, could benefit from its warmth. The fire's size was never left to chance. It was meticulously maintained, kept small enough to avoid overwhelming the space with smoke or risking a dangerous flare-up, yet large enough to provide consistent, life-sustaining heat. Families would use specific types of wood, such as hardwoods that burned longer and produced steady heat, and they would often bank the fire at night, covering embers with ash to keep them smoldering until morning. This careful management of the fire was a daily ritual, requiring constant vigilance and skill, as a misjudged fire could mean either a freezing night or a hazardous situation. Managing smoke was a complex and essential aspect of winter survival. Native Americans engineered their shelters with advanced ventilation systems that balanced the need for warmth with the necessity of fresh air. In teepees, adjustable smoke flaps at the top could be manipulated to respond to shifting wind directions and weather conditions. These flaps were often controlled with long poles from inside, allowing for quick adjustments without exposing the interior to the cold. The smoke hole itself was carefully sized and positioned to maximize draft efficiency, drawing smoke upward and out while minimizing heat loss. In earth lodges and wigwams, roof holes or side vents served a similar function, and some designs even included baffles or angled openings to prevent snow and rain from entering. During blizzards, families would monitor the wind and adjust the flaps or vents frequently, sometimes even partially closing them to retain more heat while still allowing enough airflow to prevent carbon monoxide buildup. The ability to fine-tune these ventilation systems was a product of generations of observation and experimentation, and it was vital for both comfort and safety. In some communities, aromatic woods or herbs were burned to help purify the air and mask the smell of smoke, further enhancing the living environment. Insulation began at the ground level, where the cold was most relentless. The frozen earth could quickly drain heat from a shelter, so Native Americans developed multi-layered flooring systems to combat this. The first layer typically consisted of thick mats woven from reeds, grasses, or cedar boughs, which provided both insulation and a dry, comfortable surface. These natural materials were chosen for their insulating properties and their ability to wick away moisture, preventing dampness from seeping upward. On top of this, families would lay animal furs and hides, buffalo, deer, elk, or even bear, creating a plush, heat-retaining barrier. The furs not only trapped body heat but also offered a soft, inviting place to sit or sleep. In regions with especially harsh winters, the floor might be built up with several alternating layers of grass and hides, and the materials would be refreshed regularly to maintain their effectiveness. Children often participated in gathering and arranging these materials, learning the importance of each layer and how to spot signs of wear or dampness. In some cases, raised sleeping platforms made from wood or woven branches were constructed to further separate sleepers from the cold ground, and these platforms would be piled high with furs and blankets for maximum comfort. The walls of winter shelters were fortified with layers of natural insulation, turning thin fabric or wooden frames into formidable barriers against the cold. Buffalo hides, prized for their thickness and insulating qualities, were the material of choice on the plains, while elk, moose, or caribou hides were used in forested and northern regions. These hides were often sewn together into large panels, sometimes double-layered with an air gap in between to create a powerful insulating effect, much like the principle behind modern double-glazed windows. The hides were hung tightly along the interior walls, with special attention paid to overlapping seams and corners to eliminate drafts. In some traditions, the hides were smoked or treated with natural oils to increase their durability and resistance to moisture. Women and children worked together to maintain these wall coverings, repairing tiers and replacing worn sections as needed. The tactile warmth and visual richness of the hides contributed to a sense of security and comfort, making the shelter feel like a true sanctuary from the elements. In particularly severe climates, additional measures such as snow-packed windbreaks or extra layers of bark and grass might be added to the exterior for even greater protection. the warmth of the shelter was further enhanced by the living beings within it. Dogs, considered both companions and helpers, played a surprisingly important role in winter survival. At night, dogs would curl up with family members, their body heat providing an extra layer of warmth, especially for children and elders. This practice was not only comforting but also practical, as the combined warmth of people and animals could make a significant difference during the coldest nights. Families typically slept close together, often in a circle around the fire or on shared sleeping platforms, wrapped in thick blankets and furs. This communal arrangement maximized the retention of body heat and fostered a sense of unity and mutual support. In some communities, special sleeping robes or bags made from multiple hides were crafted for winter use, and the arrangement of sleepers was carefully planned to ensure that the most vulnerable, such as infants and elders, were kept warmest. Raised beds, when used, were sometimes lined with additional furs or even heated stones wrapped in cloth to provide gentle warmth throughout the night. The design of the shelter, itself, was a marvel of environmental adaptation. The conical shape of the teepee, for example, was not only aerodynamic, shedding wind and snow, but also highly efficient at circulating warm air. Hot air from the central fire would rise, creating a gentle convection current that distributed heat throughout the space. In earth lodges, the domed or semi-subterranean structure provided natural insulation, with thick earthen walls that absorbed and retained heat. Some teepees featured double walls, with an insulating air pocket between two layers of hide, while others had snow or sod packed around the base to block drafts and further insulate the interior. Entryways were often designed as short tunnels or with overlapping flaps, creating a cold trap that prevented frigid air from rushing inside whenever the door was opened. These architectural innovations were the result of centuries of experimentation and adaptation, with each community refining their designs to suit local conditions, whether that meant extra thick walls for the subarctic or wider smoke holes for regions with frequent storms. In some cases, families would even build temporary vestibules or windbreaks from snow, brush, or hides to shield the entrance and conserve precious warmth. The effectiveness of these heating and insulation techniques depended not just on materials and design, but on the collective knowledge and effort of the community. Elders were the keepers of this wisdom, teaching younger generations the intricacies of shelter construction, fire management, and insulation maintenance. Instruction was hands-on and continuous, with children learning by doing, gathering firewood, layering hides, repairing damage after storms, and making adjustments as the weather shifted. Community cooperation was essential, especially during the most severe winters, when resources had to be shared and labor divided. Gathering enough firewood for the season was a communal task, as was the preparation and storage of hides and other insulating materials. In some communities, families would rotate responsibilities for maintaining communal shelters or assisting elders and those in need. This spirit of mutual support ensured that everyone, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, had a safe and warm place to weather the winter. Ultimately, it was this remarkable combination of traditional knowledge, innovative design, and communal effort that transformed simple shelters into true sanctuaries of warmth and safety. By harnessing the insulating power of natural materials, perfecting the art of fire and smoke management, and fostering a culture of cooperation and adaptability, Native Americans were able to thrive in some of the most challenging winter environments on the continent. Their methods, honed over countless generations, stand as a testament to human ingenuity, resilience, and the enduring strength of community. These lessons continue to inspire, reminding us that survival in the harshest conditions is possible when people work together, share knowledge, and respect the wisdom of those who came before. For Native American communities, surviving the harsh winter months was a challenge that demanded not only careful planning and ingenuity, but also a profound understanding of the land's natural cycles and resources. The foundation of winter survival was built during the abundant months when families and entire villages worked together to gather, process, and preserve as much food as possible. Every tribe, whether living in the dense woodlands, the open plains, or the far northern tundra, developed highly specialized and regionally adapted methods to ensure that food supplies would last through the coldest, most unforgiving months. These preservation techniques were shaped by the local climate, the types of plants and animals available, and centuries of accumulated wisdom passed down through generations. The process of preparing for winter was a communal effort, involving men, women, and children, each with specific roles and responsibilities. Meat preservation was absolutely vital for survival, especially for tribes whose primary food sources came from hunting large and small game. Hunters would carefully butcher animals such as deer, bison, elk, or moose, cutting the meat into thin strips to maximize surface area for drying. These strips were then hung on wooden racks, either in the open air under the sun or over smoky fires, depending on the weather and local traditions. The drying process removed moisture, which is essential for preventing bacterial growth and spoilage, while the smoke added both flavor and additional preservative properties. In many regions, dried meat was further processed by pounding it into a powder and mixing it with rendered animal fat and wild berries to create pemmican. This dense, high-calorie food was not only portable and long-lasting, but also provided a balanced source of protein, fat, and carbohydrates, making it ideal for long journeys, hunting expeditions, or periods when fresh food was unavailable. Pemmican could be eaten as a compact snack, or boiled into nourishing stews to stretch supplies even further. In the far north, Inuit and Cree peoples depended on pemmican as a dietary staple, while plains tribes relied on it during extended buffalo hunts and times of scarcity. Fish, too, was preserved by filleting, salting, and smoking, ensuring a steady supply of protein even when rivers and lakes froze over. For agricultural tribes such as the Haudenosaunee, Iroquois, Cherokee, and Mandan, the three sisters, corn, beans, and squash, formed the backbone of their winter diet. These crops were ingeniously grown together in a system that maximized yield and soil health. Corn provided a tall stalk for beans to climb, beans fixed nitrogen in the soil to fertilize the corn, and squash spread broad leaves along the ground, suppressing weeds and retaining moisture. At harvest, corn was picked and braided or bundled, then hung from rafters or poles to dry thoroughly, preventing mold and rot. Beans were shelled and spread out on animal hides or woven mats to dry in the sun, while squash was sliced into rings or strips and sun-dried to preserve its nutrients. These staples were stored in tightly woven baskets, clay pots, or even underground storage pits lined with grass or bark to protect them from moisture, insects, and rodents. In addition to cultivated crops, nuts such as acorns, hickory nuts, and walnuts were gathered in the fall. Acorns, which contain bitter tannins, were leached in running water or boiled to remove bitterness before being dried and stored. Roots like wild onions, camas, and cattail were dug up, cleaned, and dried for use as vital sources of carbohydrates and vitamins. In some regions, wild rice was harvested from lakes and rivers, then parched over fires and stored in large quantities for winter meals. These diverse foods provided a nutritional safety net, ensuring that families had access to essential vitamins and minerals even when fresh produce was unavailable. Even in the depths of winter, Native Americans continued to seek out fresh food whenever possible, supplementing their preserved stores with whatever the land could provide. Hunters braved freezing temperatures and deep snow to track deer, rabbits, and other game, using an intimate knowledge of animal behavior, migration patterns, and tracks to locate their quarry. Small game such as rabbits, squirrels, and birds were caught using snares, deadfalls, and other ingenious traps set along well-worn animal paths. Ice fishing was another crucial winter activity, especially in northern regions. Holes were cut through thick ice using bone or stone tools, and lines or spears were used to catch fish swimming beneath the frozen surface. Foragers dug beneath the snow to find edible roots, nuts, and even the inner bark of certain trees, such as pine, birch, or aspen. The cambium layer of these trees could be scraped, dried, and ground into flour or eaten directly in times of extreme scarcity. Pine needles were brewed into a vitamin C-rich tea to ward off scurvy, and the inner bark provided a last resort source of calories. These emergency foods, though not always palatable, were essential for survival during the leanest times. The winter diet was a carefully crafted balance of preserved and fresh foods, designed to provide not only energy and nutrition, but also variety and comfort. Dried corn was often ground into meal and cooked into hearty stews, porridges, or breads, while beans were simmered with dried meat or fat to create protein-rich dishes. Squash, once rehydrated, added both flavor and essential nutrients to meals. Smoked fish and pemmican supplied vital fats and calories, which were especially important for maintaining body heat and energy during the cold months. Dried berries and nuts, rich in vitamins and minerals, offered a welcome change of taste and were often eaten as snacks or added to stews and porridges. Seeds such as sunflower, pumpkin, and amaranth were roasted and eaten whole, or ground into flour for baking and thickening soups. Meals were typically communal, with families and sometimes entire villages gathering to share what they had stored and prepared, reinforcing social bonds and ensuring that no one went hungry. The techniques for preparing, cooking, and storing food were passed down through generations, with each family and community developing their own variations and specialties. Food was often cooked slowly over low fires to maximize both nutrition and flavor, using clay pots for boiling, stone boiling methods with heated rocks, or roasting on hot coals. Animal skin bags, clay pots, and tightly woven baskets were used to store and transport food, each chosen for its ability to protect against moisture, pests, and spoilage. Every meal represented the culmination of months of labor, foresight, and deep knowledge of the land. The act of preparing and sharing food was not only practical, but also deeply cultural, reflecting the collective wisdom of ancestors and the adaptability of each new generation. Food preservation was far more than a daily chore. It was a sophisticated survival strategy, a communal responsibility, and a vital means of passing on essential knowledge. Elders played a crucial role, teaching the young how to properly dry, smoke, and store food, as well as how to recognize signs of spoilage and contamination. Children learned to identify edible plants, roots, and nuts, and were involved in every step of the process, from gathering and preparing to storing and monitoring supplies. This intergenerational teaching not only ensured the survival of the community, but also fostered resilience, adaptability, and a strong sense of shared purpose and responsibility. Through resourcefulness, cooperation, and a deep respect for the land, Native Americans transformed the threat of winter scarcity into a season of abundance and resilience. Every carefully preserved morsel was a testament to their ingenuity, adaptability, and reverence for the gifts of nature. In the heart of winter, food was far more than mere sustenance. It was a source of hope, a vessel for tradition, and the very foundation of survival. Meals became times for gratitude, storytelling, and strengthening the bonds that held families and communities together, ensuring that the hard-earned wisdom of the past would continue to nourish future generations. As the relentless grip of winter enveloped the land, Native American families instinctively drew closer, both physically and emotionally, within the protective embrace of their lodges and teepees. These shelters were marvels of indigenous engineering, constructed with sturdy wooden frames layered with thick animal hides, and often further insulated with snow, brush, or woven mats to trap precious heat. The design allowed smoke from the central fire to escape through a vent at the top, while still retaining warmth and minimizing drafts. In these sanctuaries, families found not only protection from the biting cold and howling winds, but also a sense of security and belonging. The daily rhythm of winter life began long before the first light of dawn. Someone, often an elder or early riser, would gently stir the embers of the central fire, coaxing it back to life with careful hands and dry kindling. The soft crackle of flames, the muted voices of family members, the rustle of fur blankets, and the shifting of sleeping mats signaled the start of another day, a day dedicated to survival, cooperation, and the strengthening of family bonds. The first tasks of the day were vital for both comfort and survival. Tending the fire was a never-ending responsibility, as the hearth was the heart of the home, providing heat, light, and a place to cook. Melting snow for water was a daily necessity, requiring constant attention to ensure a steady supply for drinking, cooking, and cleaning. Breakfasts were simple yet sustaining, often consisting of pemmican, a high-energy mixture of dried meat, fat, and berries, along with dried roots, nuts, and preserved fruits gathered and stored during the abundant months. Inside the shelter, the space became a bustling workshop. Tools essential for hunting, food preparation, and daily chores were carefully maintained and repaired. Arrowheads and knives were sharpened using stone or bone, and broken implements were mended with sinew or rawhide. Clothing, too, required constant upkeep. Women and older girls sewed and patched garments using bone needles and sinew thread, while tanning hides continued indoors. This labor-intensive process involved scraping, stretching, and softening animal skins to create warm, durable clothing, moccasins, and blankets, each piece essential for survival in the frigid climate. Every member of the family, regardless of age or gender, played a crucial role in the daily routine. Even the youngest children contributed by gathering kindling and small bundles of firewood, learning early the importance of teamwork and responsibility. These tasks were not only practical but also served as foundational lessons in self-reliance and cooperation. Men and older boys would venture outside, braving the harsh winter air to check traps set for small game such as rabbits, squirrels, or muskrats. These traps, carefully placed along animal trails or near burrows, provided a vital source of fresh meat during the lean months. Gathering additional firewood was another essential chore, as a steady supply was needed to keep the fire burning day and night. These brief excursions required careful planning and awareness of the weather, as exposure to extreme cold could be dangerous. The ability to read animal tracks in the snow, judge the quality of firewood, and move efficiently through deep drifts were all skills honed from a young age, ensuring the family's survival through the long, unforgiving winter. Indoors, the long, dark hours of winter became a precious time for cultural transmission and learning. Elders, deeply respected as the keepers of tradition and wisdom, would gather the children around the fire and share stories, legends, and oral histories passed down through countless generations. These tales were more than mere entertainment. They were rich with practical lessons about survival, respect for the natural world, and the values that bound the community together. Through these stories, children learned about their ancestors' struggles and triumphs, the spirits that inhabited the land, and the importance of virtues like courage, generosity, and cooperation. Meanwhile, women taught girls the intricate arts of beading, weaving, and decorating clothing. Using colorful glass beads, porcupine quills, and dyed threads, they created garments and accessories that were both beautiful and functional. These skills were not only artistic expressions, but also essential for making clothing that could withstand the rigors of winter. The process of creating these items fostered patience, attention to detail, and a deep sense of pride in one's heritage. As the sun set early and darkness lingered for long hours, games and music became essential for maintaining morale and strengthening social bonds. Traditional hand games, which often involved sleight of hand, quick thinking, and strategic guessing, were played by both children and adults. These games were accompanied by singing, drumming, and rhythmic clapping, filling the lodge with energy and laughter. Guessing contests, riddles, and storytelling competitions provided mental stimulation and friendly rivalry, helping to keep minds sharp and spirits high. Music and dance were also important, with songs passed down through generations serving as both entertainment and a means of preserving language and culture. These activities were more than just diversions. They reinforced teamwork, taught important social skills, and provided a sense of normalcy and joy during the isolating winter months. The shared experience of play and music helped everyone cope with the monotony and challenges of the season, reinforcing the sense of community and belonging that was vital for survival. Spiritual life took on even greater significance during the cold, quiet months. With the world outside blanketed in snow and silence, families gathered indoors for ceremonies and rituals that honored their ancestors, sought guidance from the spirit world, and gave thanks for the warmth, food, and safety they enjoyed. These gatherings often included prayers, songs, drumming, and the burning of sacred herbs such as sage, sweetgrass, or cedar. The preparation of ceremonial items, feathers, herbs, carved objects, and painted symbols became a communal effort, with each person contributing their skills and energy. These rituals reinforced a sense of shared purpose and spiritual connection, reminding everyone of their place within the larger web of life. The winter ceremonies were also a time for reflection, renewal, and the reaffirmation of cultural identity, helping individuals and families find meaning and strength in the face of hardship. Winter was also a season of learning, creativity, and preparation for the future. Young people practiced storytelling, mimicking the voices, gestures, and dramatic flair of their elders, and learned the traditional dances that would one day be theirs to perform at ceremonies and gatherings. These performances were not only entertaining, but also served as important vehicles for passing down history, values, and cultural knowledge. Families worked together to craft essential winter gear, snowshoes, sleds, and warm clothing, using materials gathered and prepared throughout the year. Shaping wood for snowshoe frames, weaving rawhide for lacing, and sewing furs for mittens and parkas were all skills taught through hands-on instruction and repetition. These activities ensured that each generation was equipped to face the challenges of deep snow and freezing temperatures. The process of making these items fostered pride, self-reliance, and a sense of accomplishment, while also strengthening family bonds and community ties. Life inside the winter lodge was rich, purposeful, and deeply interconnected. Far from being a time of inactivity, winter was a period of concentrated living, where creativity flourished, knowledge was shared, and social bonds were strengthened. Every day was woven with meaning, resilience, and togetherness. The cold season became a time of cultural renewal, where the warmth of family, tradition, and community provided the strength to endure and thrive until the return of spring. In this way, Native American families not only survived the harshest months of the year, but emerged from winter with their spirits, skills, and cultural heritage renewed and strengthened. For Native Americans, venturing outdoors during the winter months was a challenge that demanded careful preparation and deep understanding of the environment. The dangers posed by the frigid air, biting winds, and heavy snowfall were not just uncomfortable, they could be deadly if not properly addressed. Survival depended on the ability to maintain body heat, prevent moisture from reaching the skin, and remain agile enough to perform essential tasks like hunting, gathering, and traveling. Over centuries, Native communities developed intricate systems of winter clothing, each piece reflecting a profound knowledge of local resources, animal behavior, and climate patterns. These garments were not simply thrown together, they were the result of generations of observation, experimentation, and refinement, ensuring that every layer and stitch contributed to warmth, dryness, and freedom of movement. The clothing was a living technology, evolving with the needs of the people and the challenges of the land. Among the Plains tribes, buffalo robes were the cornerstone of winter attire. The thick, dense fur of the buffalo provided exceptional insulation, trapping a layer of warm air close to the body and shielding the wearer from the harshest winds. These robes were often large enough to wrap around the entire body, creating a cocoon of warmth that could withstand even blizzard conditions. The process of preparing a buffalo hide for clothing was labor-intensive. After the animal was hunted, the hide was carefully scraped, tanned, and softened, often using a mixture of animal brains and water to break down the fibers. This not only made the hide supple, but also increased its resistance to moisture and cold. Beneath the buffalo robe, additional layers made from deer, elk, or moose hides were worn. Deer and elk hides, being lighter and more flexible, allowed for greater mobility, which was crucial for activities like tracking game or gathering firewood. Each type of hide brought its own advantages. Moose hide, for example, was especially valued in northern regions for its thickness and durability. By layering these materials, Native Americans could adjust their clothing to match the severity of the weather and the demands of their daily routines, ensuring both warmth and the ability to move freely. The science of layering was a foundational principle in Native American winter clothing. The innermost layer was often made from the softest, most insulating furs, such as rabbit, beaver, or muskrat worn directly against the skin. These furs were prized for their ability to trap heat without adding excessive bulk, and their fine underfur created a microclimate that kept the body warm even in sub-zero temperatures. Over this, additional layers of hide or fur could be added, each serving a specific function. Some blocked wind, others repelled moisture, and still others provided extra insulation. Elders played a crucial role in passing down the knowledge of how to select, prepare, and combine these materials. Children were taught from an early age to recognize the qualities of different furs and hides, to understand how to adjust their clothing for changing conditions, and to care for their garments so they would last through many winters. This education was both practical and cultural, reinforcing a sense of responsibility and connection to the land and its animals. In the Arctic and subarctic regions, the Inuit and related peoples developed some of the most advanced cold-weather clothing ever created. The parka, a hooded coat made from caribou or sealskin, was a marvel of indigenous engineering. Caribou fur, with its hollow hairs, provided superior insulation by trapping air and reflecting body heat back toward the wearer. Sealskin, naturally oily and water-resistant, was used for outer layers that needed to repel snow and slush. The construction of a parka was a meticulous process. Hides were carefully selected, cut, and sewn to fit the body snugly, minimizing gaps where cold air could enter. Hoods were often trimmed with fur from animals like wolverine or wolf, whose long guard hairs prevented frost from forming near the face. Mittens were crafted with a double-layer system, fur inside for warmth, waterproof skin outside for protection. These garments were so effective that they have influenced the design of modern expedition gear, and their principles are still studied by scientists and outdoor experts today. Footwear was another area where native ingenuity shone. Standard moccasins, while comfortable and flexible, were not sufficient for winter's challenges. To adapt, people lined their moccasins with fur or stuffed them with dried grasses such as sedge or cattail. These grasses acted as natural insulation, creating a cushion of warm, dry air around the foot and wicking away moisture from sweat. This was vital, as even a small amount of dampness could lead to frostbite and freezing temperatures. The fur lining added another layer of warmth, and the soft construction of the moccasin allowed for a natural gait and good traction on snow and ice. High moccasins or boots, sometimes reaching up to the knee, were used in deep snow or extremely cold conditions, providing additional protection. The soles were often reinforced with extra hide or rawhide, and all seams were stitched with sinew, which was both strong and flexible, ensuring the footwear could endure the rigors of winter travel and hunting. Even with the best clothing, some parts of the body, like the face and hands, remained exposed to the elements. To protect these vulnerable areas, Native Americans developed ointments and protective pastes made from animal fats, such as bear or seal oil, sometimes mixed with natural pigments or medicinal herbs. These mixtures served multiple purposes. They created a barrier that locked in moisture, prevented skin from drying and cracking, and shielded against windburn and frostbite. The pigments could also reduce glare from the sun reflecting off snow, acting as a primitive but effective form of sunscreen. For children whose skin was especially sensitive, these protective coatings were applied regularly, and the process often became a communal activity, reinforcing bonds and passing down traditional knowledge. In some cultures, the application of these mixtures also carried spiritual or symbolic significance, connecting individuals to their ancestors, the land, and the animals that provided the raw materials. The making of winter clothing was a highly skilled communal process that drew on the collective knowledge and labor of the community. Hides were tanned using traditional methods, soaking in animal brains, smoking over fires, or using plant-based solutions to achieve the right balance of softness, durability, and weather resistance. Once prepared, the hides were cut and sewn with bone or antler needles and sinew thread, which was valued for its strength and flexibility. Every seam was carefully placed to minimize heat loss and prevent wind or moisture from penetrating the garment. Women, who were often the primary makers of clothing, worked together in groups, sharing techniques, stories, and songs as they crafted each piece. Decorative elements like beadwork, quillwork, or painted designs were sometimes added, not only for beauty but also to signify family, clan, or spiritual identity. The process of making clothing was also a time for teaching. Children learned by watching and helping, ensuring that these vital skills were passed down through generations. Winter clothing functioned as a portable, adaptable shelter. Each component, hoods, mittens, leggings, robes, could be added or removed as needed, allowing individuals to regulate their body temperature and respond to changing weather or activity levels. Before embarking on a journey or facing a snowstorm, people would meticulously check their clothing, ensuring every layer was secure and every opening sealed. This attention to detail was not just about comfort, it was a matter of survival. Overheating could be as dangerous as freezing, so the ability to adjust clothing quickly was essential. The modular nature of these garments also meant that repairs and adjustments could be made on the go, using spare materials or tools carried in a pouch or bag. Innovation was a constant theme in the evolution of Native American winter clothing. Each region developed specialized solutions to local challenges. In areas with intense sunlight and snow glare, snow goggles made from bone, wood, or antler were crafted with narrow slits to reduce the risk of snow blindness, a condition caused by the sun's rays reflecting off the snow and damaging the eyes. In wet or marshy environments, waterproof boots made from sealskin, fish skin, or even birch bark allowed people to cross streams and slushy ground without getting their feet wet. Some communities developed capes or cloaks that could be quickly thrown over the shoulders during sudden storms, while others created intricate systems of ties and fastenings to keep garments secure in high winds. The knowledge of how to make, repair, and improve these items was passed down through families and communities, with each generation adding new insights and adaptations. This body of knowledge was not only practical but also a vital part of cultural identity, linking people to their ancestors and the land. In the end, winter clothing was much more than a physical barrier against the cold. It was a testament to the ingenuity, adaptability, and deep ecological knowledge of native peoples. Every garment was a story, woven from the land's resources and the wisdom of countless generations. The skills required to make and use these clothes were central to survival, but they also fostered community, creativity, and a profound respect for the animals and environment that made life possible. Today, these traditions continue to be honored and practiced, connecting new generations to their heritage and to the enduring lessons of resilience and harmony with nature. For Native Americans, winter was a season that demanded constant adaptation, movement, and a profound understanding of the natural world. Even as snow blanketed the land and temperatures plummeted, travel and hunting were not just routine, they were essential lifelines for survival. The ability to traverse harsh winter landscapes was a testament to generations of accumulated knowledge, resourcefulness, and resilience. In many regions, the food carefully stored from the fall harvest, dried meats, berries, nuts, and roots, could only last so long. As winter deepened, hunting and foraging became critical, requiring families and entire communities to plan their movements with precision. Sometimes, this meant relocating entire camps to follow the migration of caribou, elk, or bison, or to seek out sheltered valleys and forests where resources were more abundant. The winter landscape, though formidable, was not seen as an obstacle, but as a living environment, one that could be read, understood, and navigated with the right skills, preparation, and communal effort. Every journey was a calculated risk, balancing the need for food and safety against the dangers of exposure, storms, and thin ice. Snowshoes were among the most vital winter technologies, ingeniously crafted in a variety of shapes and sizes to suit the unique conditions of each region. Broad, round snowshoes were ideal for traversing deep powdery snow, while long, narrow designs excelled on icy, compacted trails. These tools worked by distributing a person's weight over a larger surface area, preventing them from sinking into deep drifts, and transforming what would otherwise be an impassable landscape into a navigable one. The Cree and Ojibwe, for example, developed snowshoes with pointed ends to maneuver through dense forests, while the Inuit favored shorter, wider models for the open tundra. The process of making snowshoes was a complex skill passed down through generations, involving the careful selection of flexible woods like ash or birch, and the intricate lacing of rawhide or sinew to create a strong, lightweight frame. Children learned from elders not only how to construct and repair snowshoes, but also how to interpret the snow's texture and depth, and how to select the right design for the day's journey. This knowledge was essential for safe and efficient travel, and it was often shared through stories, demonstrations, and hands-on teaching during the long winter months. Toboggans and sleds were equally indispensable for winter mobility. Crafted from curved wood and lashed together with rawhide, these sleds allowed families and hunting parties to transport heavy loads, food, firewood, tools, and even children, across vast frozen landscapes. The toboggan, a staple among the Algonquin and Cree, was designed to glide smoothly over snow without sinking, its shape and construction tailored to the terrain. Goods were carefully wrapped in animal hides to protect them from moisture and freezing temperatures, and the sleds themselves could be quickly repaired using available materials like sinew, bone, or wood. Children often rode atop the loads, turning arduous journeys into moments of joy and bonding, while adults focused on navigating and pulling the sleds through snowdrifts and over ice. The use of sleds and toboggans conserved precious energy, enabling groups to travel farther and carry more than would be possible on foot, alone. In some regions, dogs were trained to help pull sleds, further increasing the range and efficiency of winter travel. Winter hunting was a highly skilled endeavor, requiring acute observation, patience, and a deep understanding of animal behavior. Hunters learned to read the snow as if it were a living book, interpreting tracks, scat, and subtle disturbances to locate game. The snow revealed the movements of deer, rabbits, and other animals, while deep drifts often slowed prey, giving skilled hunters a crucial advantage. A broken twig, a patch of disturbed snow, or the freshness of tracks could indicate a recent passage, while the depth, spacing, and shape of footprints could reveal the animal's size, speed, and even its health. Some hunters would map out animal movement patterns directly in the snow, planning their approach to maximize the chance of a successful hunt. In addition to large game, small animals like rabbits, grouse, and ptarmigan were also tracked and trapped, providing vital protein during the leanest months. Trapping lines were set and checked regularly, and knowledge of animal habits, such as where they sheltered during storms or where they foraged for food, was essential for success. This expertise was often shared through stories, demonstrations, and communal hunts, ensuring that each generation learned the skills necessary to provide for their people. Navigation during winter was an intricate art, blending environmental awareness with traditional knowledge. The sun, stars, wind, and even the shape of snowdrifts served as natural guides. Landmarks that disappeared beneath snow, such as trails, streams, or rock formations, were remembered and recognized by subtle cues: the bend of a river, the outline of a tree line, or the direction of prevailing winds. The position of the sun at midday could help determine direction, while the North Star and other constellations provided guidance at night. The way snow drifted against trees or rocks indicated wind direction, helping travelers orient themselves even in whiteout conditions. Oral traditions, songs, and stories often encoded this navigational knowledge, ensuring that even young members of the community could find their way if separated from the group. In some regions, travelers would also use the feel of the snow underfoot, its texture, crunch, or resistance, to judge their location and the likelihood of hidden dangers like thin ice or deep drifts. This deep environmental literacy was essential for safe travel and was cultivated from a young age through observation, participation, and storytelling. Preparation for winter travel was a meticulous process, involving careful planning and attention to every detail. Before setting out, travelers dressed in multiple layers of fur and hide, each chosen for its insulating properties and ability to wick away moisture. Clothing was adjusted for both warmth and mobility, with belts, sashes, and cloaks tied securely to prevent heat loss. Tools and clothing were thoroughly checked and repaired. Snowshoes were inspected for weak spots, sleds were reinforced, and essential items like knives, fire-starting kits, and repair materials were packed in accessible pouches. Routes were discussed in detail, with elders and experienced travelers sharing knowledge of hazards, such as thin ice, avalanche-prone slopes, or areas frequented by predators. Contingency plans were made for sudden storms, injuries, or unexpected obstacles, and roles were assigned to each member of the group to ensure that everyone knew their responsibilities. This level of preparation was not only practical but also fostered a sense of shared purpose and mutual reliance, strengthening the bonds within the community. Winter travel was rarely undertaken alone. Cooperation and communication were the foundation of every successful journey. Whether crafting new snowshoes, sharing knowledge of safe routes, or helping each other through difficult terrain, every member of the group played a vital role. Tasks were divided according to skill and experience. Some focused on repairing equipment, others on navigation, and still others on gathering firewood or preparing food. After a long day's travel, people would gather around the fire, sharing stories, food, and advice for the next day. These moments of rest and camaraderie were essential for maintaining morale and passing on knowledge. If a sled became stuck or a snowshoe broke, everyone pitched in to solve the problem, reinforcing bonds of trust and interdependence. This spirit of collaboration was not only practical but also deeply cultural, reflecting the values of mutual support and collective survival that were central to Native American life. The frozen world, though harsh and unforgiving, was rendered navigable through creativity, tradition, and an unyielding spirit. Mobility in winter was not just about survival, it was a triumph of invention, observation, and the enduring strength of Native American communities. Each successful journey, each hunt, and each safe arrival at a new camp was a testament to the collective wisdom, adaptability, and resilience of the people. Through generations, these skills and stories were passed down, ensuring that even in the coldest, most challenging months, life continued, rooted in tradition, strengthened by community, and guided by a profound respect for the land. The ability to thrive in winter was not only a matter of physical endurance, but also of cultural continuity, ingenuity, and the deep bonds that held communities together in the face of adversity. For Native American communities, winter was far more than a season marked by cold and scarcity. It was a sacred, transformative period, deeply woven into the spiritual and cultural fabric of daily life. As the world outside became hushed beneath a thick blanket of snow, the people turned inward, both physically and spiritually, seeking warmth, wisdom, and connection within their lodges and tents. The long, dark nights and the stillness of winter were seen as a time when the boundaries between the physical and spiritual worlds grew thin, making it an ideal season for reflection, ceremony, and seeking guidance from ancestors and the unseen forces that shaped their world. Many tribes believed that winter was a time when spirits were closest, and the silence of the land encouraged introspection, storytelling, and the renewal of communal bonds. This period was not just endured, but embraced as an opportunity for spiritual growth, healing, and the reaffirmation of cultural identity. The home, whether a teepee, wigwam, or earth lodge, became a sanctuary where the sacred and the everyday were inseparable. The central fire was not only a practical necessity for warmth and cooking but also the spiritual heart of the household. In many cultures, the fire was considered a living entity, a direct link to ancestors, the creator, and the cosmos. It was customary for the fire to be kept burning throughout the winter, symbolizing the unbroken thread of life and the enduring presence of the spirit world. Sacred bundles, carefully assembled collections of feathers, stones, animal hides, beads, and personal totems, were placed near the fire, each item imbued with stories, ancestral power, and spiritual significance. The air inside the lodge was often perfumed with the smoke of burning sage, cedar, or sweetgrass, which were believed to purify the space, protect the inhabitants from negative energies, and invite benevolent spirits. These rituals were not reserved for special occasions. They were woven into daily life, with each act of tending the fire, arranging sacred objects, or smudging the air seen as a form of prayer and a reaffirmation of the community's spiritual values. Winter ceremonies were among the most important events of the year, marking the turning of the seasons and the renewal of life. The winter solstice in particular was celebrated with elaborate rituals, songs, dances, and prayers to honor the sun's return and the promise of spring. These gatherings were moments of profound communal connection, where the entire tribe would come together to honor the cycles of nature, express gratitude, and seek guidance for the coming months. For instance, the Lakota people held the Wichoi Choka, a midwinter ceremony dedicated to honoring the spirits and asking for protection and blessings. The Iroquois celebrated the Midwinter Festival, a time for dream sharing, spiritual renewal, and forgiveness, which could last for several days and included rituals such as the stirring of ashes, tobacco burning, and the recitation of ancient stories. Participants would paint their faces with symbolic colors and patterns, don ceremonial clothing adorned with clan symbols, and engage in rituals that included drumming, chanting, and dancing. These acts were not only spiritual expressions, but also powerful affirmations of cultural identity, unity, and resilience in the face of winter's challenges. The ethic of sharing and mutual support was especially vital during the harsh winter months, when resources were limited and survival depended on the strength of the community. Food, firewood, and warm clothing were distributed according to need, ensuring that no one was left to face the cold alone. Communal meals were a daily ritual, with women preparing nourishing stews from dried meats, beans, corn, and stored vegetables, and passing bowls around the circle so that everyone could partake. In many tribes, it was customary to offer the first portion of food to the spirits, the ancestors, or to those most in need, reinforcing the belief that generosity was a sacred duty. Acts of giving, whether a handful of berries, a warm blanket, or a cherished story, were seen as offerings to the Creator and the ancestors, strengthening the bonds of kinship and ensuring the well-being of the entire community. This spirit of reciprocity and collective care was not only practical but deeply spiritual, reflecting the understanding that survival and spiritual fulfillment were inseparable. Storytelling was the lifeblood of winter communal life, flourishing in the long, dark evenings when families gathered around the fire. Elders, revered as the keepers of wisdom and tradition, would recount legends, creation stories, and teachings that had been passed down through generations. These stories were far more than entertainment. They were vital lessons in survival, respect, and the sacredness of all living things. Through tales of trickster spirits, heroic ancestors, and the origins of the world, children learned about their place in the universe, the values of their people, and the importance of courage, humility, and generosity. Storytelling also served as a means of emotional support, helping people process grief, celebrate joy, and maintain hope during the most difficult times. Games, riddles, and songs were shared as well, keeping minds sharp and spirits high, and reinforcing the sense of belonging and mutual care that defined communal life. Prayer, meditation, and reflection were integral to daily life, especially during the challenges of winter. Individuals sought guidance from dreams, visions, and the wisdom of elders, believing that the quiet of winter made it easier to hear the voices of the spirits. Dream interpretation was a respected practice, with people sharing their dreams each morning and seeking insight from spiritual leaders or elders. Meditation, drumming, and quiet contemplation were common, helping individuals find inner strength, clarity, and resilience. The hardships of winter, hunger, cold, and isolation, were seen as opportunities for spiritual growth, teaching patience, gratitude, and the importance of maintaining a good heart. Many believed that enduring winter's trials with humility and hope would bring blessings and abundance in the spring, reinforcing the cyclical nature of life and the interconnectedness of all things. Survival in winter was never an individual endeavor, it was a collective effort, with each person's contribution vital to the well-being of the whole. Men, women, and children all had important roles, from gathering firewood and repairing shelters to hunting, preparing food, and caring for the young and elderly. These tasks were often accompanied by songs, stories, and laughter, transforming work into a communal ritual that reinforced social bonds and lifted spirits. The sense of shared purpose and mutual responsibility was a powerful source of strength, helping everyone endure the season's hardships and emerge stronger, more united, and spiritually renewed. Through ceremony, generosity, and shared labor, winter became a time of profound unity, sacred purpose, and the reaffirmation of the community's deepest values. In the heart of winter, spiritual life infused every aspect of existence with meaning and hope. The sight of teepees glowing softly under the stars, the sound of prayers whispered by firelight, and the shared anticipation of spring's return all contributed to a powerful sense of connection, to each other, to the land, and to the unseen world. This deep unity fostered resilience, gratitude, and the will to endure until the earth awakened once more. Through their spiritual and communal practices, Native Americans transformed winter from a time of mere survival into a season of growth, reflection, and profound meaning, ensuring that the lessons and blessings of winter would carry forward into the seasons to come. As the long, cold nights of winter settled over the land, Native American communities drew closer together, seeking warmth and comfort within their lodges and teepees. While the world outside was harsh and unforgiving, these months became a time of profound creativity and cultural expression. Winter was not merely a season to endure, it was a sacred period when art, music, and storytelling flourished, weaving families and generations together in a tapestry of shared experience and tradition. The darkness outside was met with the light of imagination and the glow of communal activity, turning survival into celebration. During these months, the home became a vibrant center of learning, creation, and spiritual renewal, where every member of the community played a role in sustaining and enriching their culture. Beadwork and quillwork were far more than simple decoration. They were acts of devotion, memory, and identity. Women and men, young and old, would gather around the fire, threading tiny glass beads or carefully flattening and dyeing porcupine quills. These materials were then woven into intricate patterns on moccasins, bags, clothing, and ceremonial objects. Each design was unique, often representing personal visions, family lineage, or clan symbols. For example, a particular color combination or motif might signify a specific tribe, a family's history, or a spiritual vision received in a dream. The process itself was meditative and communal, with elders passing down techniques and stories as they worked, ensuring that every stitch carried meaning and every pattern preserved a piece of cultural heritage. The acquisition of beads, which were often traded from distant regions, and the labor-intensive preparation of quills, reflected a deep connection to both the land and the wider world. The act of creating these items was also a way to honor ancestors and invoke spiritual protection, with certain patterns believed to bring good fortune or ward off harm. The finished pieces were treasured not only for their beauty but for the stories and prayers woven into them, often becoming family heirlooms passed down through generations. Weaving was another cherished winter craft, especially among tribes such as the Navajo, who are renowned for their intricate rugs and blankets. Wool, often sheared from sheep and then spun and dyed with natural pigments from plants, minerals, and insects, was transformed into textiles of remarkable beauty and utility. The patterns woven into these blankets and rugs were not random. They echoed the rhythms of the earth, the movement of the stars, and the stories of the people. For instance, zigzag lines might represent lightning or mountains, while specific color arrangements could symbolize the four cardinal directions or important spiritual concepts. The process of weaving itself was highly technical, requiring mastery of loom construction, yarn preparation, and complex pattern memorization. Weavers often worked for weeks or months on a single piece, sometimes singing or reciting prayers as they worked to infuse the textile with positive energy. The finished blankets and rugs were used for warmth, as bedding, or as ceremonial gifts, and were sometimes traded with neighboring tribes or settlers, serving as both practical items and symbols of cultural identity. The act of weaving was also a way to teach younger generations about patience, discipline, and the interconnectedness of all things, as every thread contributed to the strength and beauty of the whole. Music and rhythm filled the winter lodges, providing both entertainment and spiritual nourishment. The haunting notes of a wooden flute, often carved by hand and sometimes used in courtship or healing ceremonies, would drift through the cold air. Drums, crafted from animal hides stretched over wooden frames, set the heartbeat of the community, while voices rose in song, telling stories, honoring ancestors, and marking the passage of time. Songs were often specific to certain ceremonies or seasons, and learning them was a rite of passage for children. Elders would teach the younger generation not just the melodies, but the meanings behind the words, the proper occasions for each song, and the values they embodied, such as respect for nature, gratitude, and unity. Instruments themselves were often decorated with carvings or paintings, each symbol carrying spiritual significance. Group singing and drumming sessions could last for hours, sometimes all night, and were believed to strengthen communal bonds and invite blessings from the spirit world. Some songs were used to heal the sick, others to celebrate successful hunts or mark the changing of the seasons. The oral transmission of music ensured that even as times changed, the core values and stories of the people would endure. Storytelling was at the very heart of winter life. As snow fell outside, families would gather around the fire to listen to elders recount tales of creation, heroism, trickster figures, and survival. These stories explained the origins of the world, the reasons for natural phenomena, and the lessons needed to live a good life. For example, the Lakota might tell the story of White Buffalo Calf Woman, who brought the sacred pipe, while the Haudenosaunee would share the epic of the peacemaker who united the Iroquois Confederacy. Stories were often illustrated on painted animal hides or woven into baskets and blankets, serving as visual reminders of the lessons they contained. Through these narratives, children learned about respect, courage, resilience, and the interconnectedness of all living things. Storytelling was also a way to preserve language, as many stories contained rare words, idioms, and expressions unique to each tribe. The act of listening was as important as the act of telling, teaching children patience, empathy, and the importance of memory. Some stories were only told during winter, believed to be too powerful or sacred for other times of the year, and their telling was often accompanied by ritual gestures, songs, or the use of special objects. In this way, oral tradition became a living archive, constantly renewed and adapted to the needs of each generation. Creative activities extended into every aspect of daily survival. Tools, utensils, and everyday objects were not left plain. They were carved, painted, and adorned with care and artistry. Bone tools might be etched with geometric designs, pottery painted with scenes from daily life or myth, and clay figures shaped to represent animals or spirits. Even snowshoes, bows, and arrow quivers were decorated, reflecting a worldview in which beauty and function were inseparable. These objects were not only practical, they were expressions of identity, spirituality, and a deep respect for the materials provided by the earth. The process of making these items often involved rituals to honor the animals and plants that provided the raw materials, and the act of decoration was seen as a way to give thanks and ensure continued abundance. Some objects, such as pipes or ceremonial rattles, were used in religious ceremonies and were believed to possess special powers. The skills required to create these items were passed down through apprenticeships, with each generation adding new innovations while respecting traditional forms. In this way, the material culture of Native American communities became a living record of their history, beliefs, and relationship with the natural world. These shared creative moments were essential for strengthening family and community bonds. Children learned by watching and helping, gradually mastering the skills of their elders. But more than technique, they absorbed the values, stories, and sense of belonging embedded in every stitch, song, and story. Laughter, encouragement, and gentle correction were all part of the process, making the act of creation a living classroom where tradition was passed from one generation to the next. The communal nature of these activities fostered cooperation, patience, and mutual respect, as everyone contributed according to their abilities. Seasonal rhythms dictated the pace of work, with certain crafts reserved for winter when outdoor tasks were limited. This cyclical approach ensured that knowledge was not only preserved, but also adapted to changing circumstances, allowing each generation to leave its mark on the cultural legacy of the community. Ceremonies and dances, often reserved for the winter months, brought the entire community together in celebration, remembrance, and spiritual renewal. Elaborate masks, regalia, and sacred objects were crafted specifically for these occasions, each with its own symbolism and purpose. For example, the Iroquois midwinter ceremony marked the new year with dances, feasts, and the burning of tobacco, while the Hopi performed the Kachina dances to ensure the coming of rain and good harvests. These rituals honored spirits, marked important events, and reinforced the values and stories that held the community together. Preparation for these ceremonies could take weeks or even months, involving the collective efforts of artists, musicians, dancers, and spiritual leaders. The regalia worn during dances was often adorned with feathers, shells, beads, and other materials, each chosen for its symbolic meaning. The dances themselves were not only performances but acts of prayer, believed to maintain harmony between the human and spiritual worlds. Participation in these ceremonies was a source of pride and identity, reinforcing the bonds that united the community across generations. In the heart of winter's darkness, creativity and tradition illuminated every home and every heart. Art was not a separate pursuit, it was woven into the very fabric of survival, celebration, and memory. Every creation, every story, every song was a testament to beauty, resilience, and cultural pride. Through these acts, Native American communities preserved their heritage, ensuring that the wisdom, skills, and spirit of their ancestors would endure for generations yet to come. The winter months, though challenging, became a time of renewal and affirmation, where the collective memory of the people was strengthened and passed forward, ensuring that, even in the harshest conditions, the light of culture and creativity would never be extinguished. For Native Americans, surviving winter was not simply a matter of enduring hardship, it was a sophisticated way of life, shaped by countless generations of close observation, ingenuity, and a profound respect for the land and its cycles. Each winter brought a unique set of challenges: biting cold that could sap strength, blizzards that could isolate entire communities, dwindling food supplies, and the ever-present threat of frostbite or hypothermia. These obstacles demanded not only physical toughness, but also a deep well of knowledge and creativity. Over centuries, native peoples developed a vast array of strategies, ranging from shelter construction and food preservation to clothing design and social organization, that became embedded in their traditions and daily routines. The ability to adapt was not just about survival, it was a testament to the resourcefulness, resilience, and collective wisdom of indigenous cultures across North America, who learned to thrive in some of the continent's harshest environments. Shelters were meticulously engineered to withstand the cold, with each region developing its own specialized designs based on local resources and climate. In the Arctic, Inuit families constructed igloos from carefully cut blocks of compacted snow, which acted as both insulation and windbreak. The snow's air pockets trapped heat, allowing the inside temperature to rise well above freezing, even when outside temperatures plunged far below zero. On the plains, tribes such as the Lakota and Cheyenne used teepees with double layers of buffalo hides, sometimes adding extra insulation like grass, or woven mats between the layers. Snow was deliberately banked high around the bases of lodges and teepees, creating a natural barrier that trapped warmth and blocked icy winds. Inside, thick linings of animal hides and woven mats not only provided comfort, but also managed condensation, preventing moisture buildup that could lead to dangerous cold and dampness. In forested regions, some groups dug semi-subterranean homes, such as earth lodges or pit houses, using the insulating properties of the earth itself to maintain a stable, warmer temperature. These architectural innovations allowed families to conserve precious fuel, stay warm, and create safe havens from the harshest winter weather. Protecting the body from the elements was a science in itself, and clothing and gear were designed with both practicality and cultural significance. In the Arctic, snow goggles were ingeniously carved from bone, antler, or driftwood, with narrow horizontal slits that reduced the amount of sunlight entering the eyes. This simple yet effective technology prevented snow blindness, a painful and debilitating condition caused by the intense reflection of sunlight off snow and ice. The design of these goggles was refined over generations, with each community adapting the shape and fit to their needs. Clothing was equally sophisticated. People wore multiple layers of animal hides and furs, such as caribou, seal, or buffalo, which provided exceptional insulation and repelled moisture. The inner layers trapped body heat, while the outer layers blocked wind and snow. Mittens, boots, and hoods were custom-made for each individual, often using sinew stitching for waterproof seams. These garments were not only functional but also beautifully decorated with symbolic patterns, beadwork, or quill work, reflecting identity, status, and spiritual beliefs. The process of making winter clothing was a communal effort, with skills and techniques passed down through generations. Movement during winter was calculated and efficient, designed to conserve energy and minimize risk. Snowshoes, crafted from flexible wood and rawhide, distributed a person's weight over a larger area, allowing them to walk atop deep snow without sinking. The design of snowshoes varied by region. Some were long and narrow for open terrain, while others were rounder for maneuvering in dense forests. Trails were carefully packed down by repeated use, and groups often traveled in single file to make the path easier for those who followed. This not only saved energy but also reduced the risk of getting lost or separated in whiteout conditions. Daily tasks, such as gathering firewood, fetching water, or hunting, were planned to minimize exposure to the elements. Chores were often completed during the warmest part of the day, and hunting parties were organized to ensure no one spent more time in the cold than necessary. In some regions, sleds or toboggans made from wood and animal hide were used to transport supplies, children, or game across snowy landscapes. Knowledge of the terrain was crucial. People learned to recognize safe routes, avoid thin ice, and read subtle changes in snow texture that could signal danger. Environmental awareness was a vital survival skill, honed through constant observation and experience. Indigenous peoples developed an intimate, intuitive understanding of their surroundings, using all their senses to read the land. By studying the sky, they could predict changes in weather, certain cloud formations, wind directions, or the behavior of birds might signal an approaching storm or a coming thaw. The texture, color, and sound of snow underfoot could reveal its age, depth, and stability, helping people avoid hidden dangers like thin ice or avalanche-prone slopes. Animal tracks in the snow were a rich source of information, revealing not only the presence and movement of game, but also the health of herds, the habits of predators, and the changing patterns of migration. This knowledge was not static, it was constantly updated and refined through daily practice, shared among community members, and passed down through stories, songs, and hands-on teaching. The transmission of survival skills began in early childhood, with learning woven seamlessly into daily life. Children observed adults as they crafted snowshoes, sleds, and traps, gradually taking on more responsibility as their skills grew. They learned to recognize subtle signs of changing weather, to read animal tracks, and to understand the importance of teamwork and patience. Evenings around the fire were a time for storytelling, when elders recounted tales of past winters, stories that blended practical advice with lessons about respect, humility, and adaptability. These stories often emphasize the importance of living in harmony with the land, sharing resources, and never taking more than was needed. Through hands-on practice, observation, and oral tradition, each new generation was equipped not only with technical skills, but also with the values and mindset necessary to face the challenges of winter with confidence and resilience. Adaptation to winter was both a physical and mental process, a toolkit of knowledge, skills, and attitudes refined over countless generations and shared by the entire community. Mastery of the winter environment was rooted in a deep respect for nature and a willingness to learn from it, with every member contributing their unique insights and labor. Ingenuity, cooperation, and a profound connection to the land made survival not only possible but sustainable, turning the harshest season into a time of resilience, unity, and even celebration. For Native Americans, winter was not merely something to endure, but a season to embrace, to learn from, and to honor as an essential part of the cycle of life, a time when the strength of community and the wisdom of tradition shone brightest. Winter on the plains and in the forests was a relentless test of endurance for Native American communities, demanding a complex blend of preparation, adaptability, and communal strength. The environment could be brutally unforgiving, temperatures often plunge far below freezing, and blizzards sometimes rage for days or even weeks, blanketing the land in deep snow and ice. These storms could cut off access to vital resources, making hunting, gathering, and even simple travel dangerous or impossible. Even with months of careful preparation, gathering and stacking firewood, drying and smoking meat, collecting berries and roots, and meticulously insulating shelters with hides, bark, or woven mats, the dangers of blizzards, biting cold, and scarcity of food and fuel pressed hard against every native community. Each year, families braced themselves for the long, dark months ahead, fully aware that survival would demand not only skill in hunting, gathering, and shelter building, but also an unwavering spirit, deep resourcefulness, and a profound sense of togetherness and mutual reliance. During the fiercest storms, families would gather close around the fire, their bodies pressed together for warmth, rationing precious food and fuel with meticulous care. Dried meats, such as bison, venison, or fish, along with berries, nuts, and roots, painstakingly gathered, dried, and stored during the warmer months, became lifelines that could mean the difference between survival and starvation. In the dim, flickering light, elders would recall winters past, stories of ancestors who survived even harsher times and the lessons they left behind. These stories were not just memories, but blueprints for survival, teaching younger generations how to stretch supplies, maintain hope, and work together when resources were at their scarcest. Elders would explain the importance of rotating food stores to prevent spoilage, how to identify edible plants in winter, and the best ways to conserve heat and energy within the shelter. These lessons, passed down orally, were essential for the community's continued survival. Scarcity was met with sharing, a principle that extended beyond immediate family to the entire community. When one family's stores ran low, others would offer what they could. Whether it was a handful of dried berries, a strip of meat, or a few sticks of firewood. Communal support was not just an ideal, it was a life-saving ethic, woven into the fabric of daily life. In some tribes it was said that the true measure of wealth was not how much you kept, but how much you gave away. This ethic was reinforced through ceremonies like the potlatch among Northwest Coast peoples, where giving was a sign of honor and strength, and through everyday acts of generosity that ensured no one was left behind. In many communities, food was prepared and eaten communally, with large pots of stew or soup simmering over the fire, stretching limited ingredients to feed as many as possible. This practice not only maximized resources, but also reinforced social bonds and a sense of collective responsibility. Resilience came from unity and spiritual strength. Hardship was seen as part of a sacred cycle, a time to draw closer to each other and to the spirits. In the quiet of the long nights, families would join hands, offering prayers for warmth, for food, and for the safe return of hunters. Spiritual practices varied from tribe to tribe, but many included rituals, songs, and meditations that fostered a sense of hope and connection to the land, ancestors, and the unseen world. These moments of reflection and prayer helped people find meaning in suffering and reinforce the belief that endurance was a sacred duty. Some tribes held nightly ceremonies, burning sacred herbs like sage or sweetgrass to purify the space and invite blessings. Others sang traditional songs that invoked the spirits of animals, the land, and the ancestors, seeking guidance and protection. These spiritual practices not only provided comfort, but also reinforced cultural identity and a sense of belonging, even in the harshest conditions. Stories, songs, and prayers sustained hope through the darkest days. Elders would recount the tale of a young hunter, lost in a blizzard, who found his way home by following the sound of his family's singing, a reminder that the bonds of kinship could guide one through even the most perilous situations. These stories were more than entertainment. They were lessons in courage, resourcefulness, and the importance of never giving up. Songs and chants, often passed down for generations, lifted spirits and united voices, turning fear into strength and isolation into togetherness. Storytelling was also a way to teach children about the dangers of winter, the importance of listening to elders, and the skills needed to survive. Through these oral traditions, knowledge was preserved and adapted, ensuring that each new generation was better prepared for the challenges ahead. The will to endure was collective, rooted in faith and interdependence. When a tent was damaged by wind or snow, the whole community would come together to repair it. Knowing that one family's hardship could quickly become everyone's if left unaddressed, children fetched snow for melting into water, women mended hides and blankets, and men reinforced the poles and structure, each person's effort vital to the group's survival. This teamwork extended to hunting parties, food gathering, and even the care of the sick and elderly, ensuring that no one faced winter's challenges alone. In some tribes, specialized roles emerged. Certain individuals were skilled at making waterproof coverings, while others excelled at tracking game in deep snow. The pooling of skills and labor allowed the community to adapt quickly to changing conditions, repair damage, and respond to emergencies with resilience and efficiency. Winter's trials forged stronger bonds and deeper meaning within the community. In the face of adversity, acts of kindness and comfort became lifelines. A gentle embrace, a shared meal, or a whispered prayer could mean the difference between despair and hope. These small gestures, repeated day after day, built a sense of security and belonging that was as essential to survival as food or fire. The emotional support provided by family and friends helped people cope with loss, fear, and uncertainty, turning hardship into an opportunity for growth and connection. Children learned to care for younger siblings, elders offered wisdom and reassurance, and everyone contributed to the emotional well-being of the group. This culture of mutual care helped individuals process grief, celebrate small victories, and maintain a sense of purpose even in the darkest times. Survival was as much about spirit as skill. Through every blizzard and every hungry night, native communities drew on the strength of their ancestors, the warmth of their families, and the unbreakable bonds of their people. In the heart of winter, resilience was not just a necessity, it was a way of life, passed down through generations as both a practical strategy and a profound cultural value. This resilience ensured that despite the harshest conditions, native peoples not only survived, but continued to thrive, adapt, and honor the traditions that sustained them. Their ability to endure was rooted in a deep understanding of the land, a commitment to community, and a spiritual worldview that saw hardship as both a challenge and a sacred opportunity for growth. In this way, the winter became not just a season to be endured, but a time to reaffirm identity, strengthen relationships, and celebrate the enduring spirit of the people. For Native Americans, surviving the winter was never about dominating or subduing the land. It was about forming a deep, respectful partnership with the environment. The earth, animals, plants, and weather were all seen as living relatives, each with their own spirit and wisdom. This holistic worldview influenced every decision, from the way shelters were built to the methods of gathering food and maintaining warmth. During the harshest months, this philosophy became even more vital. Winter was not viewed as a hostile force, but as a season with its own unique teachings, challenges, and opportunities for growth. Communities prepared for winter by observing the land's cycles, storing food, and strengthening social bonds, all while maintaining a sense of reverence for the world around them. Every day, individuals moved through the winter landscape with a heightened sense of awareness and respect. Tracking animals was not just a means to hunt, but a way to read the land's ongoing story. A single set of deer tracks could reveal the animal's health, the presence of predators, the availability of food, and even the condition of the snow itself. Foraging for winter plants such as wild onions, rose hips, or edible bark required a deep understanding of the ecosystem, knowledge that was carefully passed down through generations. People learned to identify which plants could be safely eaten, which had medicinal properties, and which should be left untouched to ensure future growth. These skills were more than survival tactics, they were acts of stewardship, reflecting a commitment to maintaining the balance and health of the land. Each animal track in the snow was interpreted as a message from the environment, a lesson in patience, observation, and humility. By studying these signs, people could determine not only where to hunt, but also when to move, camp, how to avoid danger, and what changes were occurring in the ecosystem. Fresh tracks might indicate a nearby herd, while older wind-blown tracks could signal that the animals had moved on. Elders taught children to analyze the shape, depth, and direction of each print, as well as the story it told. Was the animal running from a predator, searching for food, or simply passing through? This careful reading of the land fostered a sense of connection and responsibility, ensuring that every action was taken with awareness of its impact. Birds were also closely observed for the valuable information they provided. Their flight patterns, calls, and feeding habits could reveal subtle shifts in weather, the presence of predators, or the location of food sources. For example, a sudden silence among birds might warn of a nearby predator, while flocks flying low could signal an approaching snowstorm. By watching where birds gathered to feed, people could discover hidden caches of seeds or berries, and by noting their migration patterns, they could anticipate seasonal changes and plan accordingly. This constant observation of animal behavior was a form of environmental monitoring, allowing communities to adapt quickly to changing conditions and make informed decisions about hunting, gathering, and travel. Even the snow itself was a constant source of information and guidance. The structure of snow crystals, the way frost formed on branches, and the sound of snow underfoot all provided clues about the weather and the environment. Light, powdery snow might make travel easier and quieter, while heavy, wet snow could indicate a coming thaw or make hunting more challenging. The crunch of snow beneath boots could signal dangerously cold temperatures, while the way frost clung to animal fur might help determine the best time to set traps. By paying attention to these details, people could predict storms, locate safe shelter, and choose the most efficient routes through the landscape. This intimate knowledge of snow and ice was essential for survival and safety during the winter months. This profound connection with nature was preserved and transmitted through traditional ecological knowledge, a body of wisdom built over countless generations. Elders played a crucial role in teaching children not only how to survive, but how to listen to the land, respect its cycles, and express gratitude for its abundance. Storytelling around the fire was a central part of this education. Through tales of past winters, animal encounters, and lessons learned from the land, young people absorbed both practical skills and a deep sense of reverence for the world around them. These stories reinforced the importance of observation, patience, and humility, ensuring that each new generation was prepared to live in harmony with nature. Gratitude and reciprocity were fundamental values woven into every interaction with the land. Offerings were made to honor the spirits of animals and plants, acknowledging that every life taken was a gift, not a right. After a successful hunt, hunters might leave a portion of meat or a bundle of sage as thanks, believing that this act would ensure the continued generosity of the land. These offerings were not mere rituals. They were expressions of humility, responsibility, and a recognition of the interconnectedness of all life. By giving back to the earth, people maintained a balance that supported both their own survival and the health of the ecosystem. Sustainability was not just a practice, but a guiding principle. People took only what was needed, ensuring that plants and animals would continue to thrive for future generations. When gathering roots or medicinal plants, they harvested sparingly and covered the earth afterward, allowing the plant to regrow and the land to heal. When collecting firewood, only fallen branches were taken, leaving living trees unharmed. Every harvest was done with care and intention, leaving enough for the land to renew itself. This ethic of sustainability was reinforced through stories, teachings, and daily actions, creating a culture of respect and responsibility toward the environment. Living in harmony with nature was the foundation of resilience and well-being. The winter landscape was not just a backdrop for survival, it was a living, breathing community, where every member, human and non-human, played a vital role. Camps were arranged to minimize impact on the land, with shelters placed to take advantage of natural windbreaks and resources. Daily routines were shaped by the needs and rhythms of the environment, from the timing of hunts to the gathering of firewood. Children learned through play and observation, while adults modeled respect, cooperation, and adaptability. This way of life fostered strong social bonds, a sense of belonging, and a deep appreciation for the interconnectedness of all things. Ultimately, the connection with nature was not only practical, but profoundly spiritual. It shaped identity, guided choices, and inspired awe. The night sky, the hush of falling snow, and the warmth of the fire were constant reminders of the beauty, power, and mystery of the world. Through respect, observation, gratitude, and reciprocity, Native Americans found not only the means to survive winter but a deep sense of belonging and purpose, a relationship with the land that continues to sustain and inspire to this day. For Native American communities, winter was not simply a time to endure the cold and survive harsh conditions. It was a season rich with meaning, connection, and cultural vitality. As snow blanketed the earth and the days grew short, families and entire villages would gather within the protective warmth of their lodges or tents. These spaces, illuminated by the soft glow of firelight, became the very heart of communal life. Here, the bonds of kinship were renewed and strengthened, and the challenges of winter were met with a spirit of unity, gratitude, and joy. The lodge was more than shelter. It was a living center of tradition, where stories, songs, and customs were passed down, ensuring that even in the darkest months, the light of culture and community continued to shine brightly. Feasting was a cornerstone of winter life, serving both practical and deeply symbolic purposes. These communal meals often marked significant events, such as the successful conclusion of a hunt, the arrival of the winter solstice, or other spiritual milestones. Every member of the community contributed to the feast, bringing together ingredients that had been carefully gathered and preserved throughout the year. Dried berries, nuts, and roots from the summer, smoked and dried meats from autumn hunts, and when possible, freshly caught game were all combined into hearty stews and dishes. The act of sharing food was a powerful expression of gratitude, generosity, and unity. It reinforced the idea that abundance was not measured solely by the quantity of food, but by the willingness to share and support one another. In many nations, special recipes were reserved exclusively for these winter gatherings, and the preparation of these dishes became a cherished tradition, with elders teaching younger generations the skills and stories behind each meal. The aroma of simmering stews filled the lodge, creating an atmosphere of comfort and celebration that helped everyone endure the long, cold nights. Despite the often harsh and frigid conditions, winter was also a season of play, learning, and physical activity. Traditional games held a special place in winter culture, serving both as entertainment and as a means of teaching important skills. One such game, Snow Snake, was especially popular among tribes in the Northeast and Great Lakes regions. In this contest, players would carve long, smooth sticks, sometimes intricately decorated, and slide them across a track of packed snow, competing to see whose stick would travel the farthest. These games were not only fun but also helped develop hand-eye coordination, precision, and a sense of friendly competition. Snowshoe races were another favorite, challenging participants to test their speed, agility, and endurance, while also honing skills essential for winter travel and hunting. Children and adults alike participated in these activities, which fostered teamwork, resilience, and a sense of belonging. Through play, communities maintained their physical health and high spirits, ensuring that the lessons of cooperation and perseverance were passed on to each new generation. Music and dance were integral to the rhythm of winter nights, infusing the long hours with energy, meaning, and connection. Drumming circles would gather people of all ages, the steady beat of the drum echoing through the lodges and out into the snowy landscape. Songs, some passed down for countless generations, others newly composed to mark recent events, were sung to honor ancestors, celebrate the present, and express hopes for the future. Dancing around the fire, often in vibrant regalia adorned with beads, feathers, and fur, was both a spiritual and social act. Each movement, each song, carried layers of meaning, prayers for good fortune, remembrances of loved ones, and expressions of gratitude for the gifts of the season. These celebrations could last deep into the night, with the warmth of the fire and the energy of the music, helping everyone to endure the cold and darkness. Through music and dance, the community reaffirmed its identity, its resilience, and its connection to the land and to each other. Winter was also a time for nurturing family bonds and passing on the wisdom of the elders. Elders, revered as the keepers of tradition and knowledge, would gather the young around the fire to share stories that taught lessons about the land, the people, and the unseen world of spirits. These stories were more than entertainment. They were a living history, a way to transmit values, survival skills, and cultural identity. The act of storytelling itself was sacred, with each tale carefully crafted to teach, inspire, and connect. Gift-giving was another cherished tradition, with handmade tokens such as beaded ornaments, woven pouches, or carved figures exchanged between generations. These gifts were not only practical but also deeply symbolic, representing love, respect, and the continuity of tradition. Through these acts of kindness and sharing, the sense of belonging and mutual support that was essential for survival was continually reinforced. Even amidst the stillness and darkness of winter, life within the community remained vibrant, hopeful, and deeply connected to the rhythms of nature. The glow of the fire, the sound of laughter, and the comfort of shared stories created a powerful sense of belonging and resilience. There were also moments of quiet reflection, times when individuals would step outside to gaze at the stars, listen to the wind moving through the trees, or simply contemplate the beauty and challenges of the season. These moments of peace and introspection were as vital as the celebrations, offering space for gratitude, spiritual renewal, and hope for the future. They reminded everyone of their place within the larger cycles of nature and the importance of balance between activity and rest. Traditional ceremonies and rituals held during winter were among the most significant events of the year for many native nations. These gatherings might include dances, prayers, and the use of sacred objects or decorations that symbolized unity, renewal, and the ongoing cycle of the seasons. Ceremonial objects, such as special drums, masks, or woven banners, were often brought out only for these occasions, each carrying its own history and meaning. The rituals served to honor the spirits, the land, and the ancestors, reinforcing the community's spiritual health and cultural identity. In the face of winter's challenges, these ceremonies provided strength, comfort, and a sense of continuity, reminding everyone of their deep connections to each other, to those who came before, and to the natural world that sustained them. In the end, joy was not a mere luxury during winter, it was a vital necessity, nourishing the spirit just as food nourished the body. Through celebration, play, storytelling, and the observance of tradition, Native American communities found the strength, resilience, and happiness needed to thrive in the heart of winter. These practices ensured that, even in the harshest conditions, hope and togetherness would sustain them, carrying their people forward until the first signs of spring returned to the land. As the relentless grip of winter gradually eased, Native American families began a meticulous and communal process of preparing for the arrival of spring, a process that was as much about survival as it was about tradition and foresight. Preparation for spring was not a single event but a season-long endeavor that demanded the participation and cooperation of every member of the community, regardless of age or status. Even while the world outside remained blanketed in snow and the wind howled through the trees, life inside the winter lodges was a hive of purposeful activity. Tools that had endured months of heavy use, snowshoes, fishing nets, hunting implements, were brought close to the fire for careful inspection and repair. Snowshoes, essential for traversing deep drifts, were mended with sinew and fresh wood, ensuring their frames remained strong and flexible. Fishing nets, which would soon be needed for the first spring catches, were painstakingly retied, using plant fibers or animal tendons, with every knot checked for strength. Hunting gear, such as bows, arrows, and animal traps, was sharpened, restrung, and reinforced, as the success of early spring hunts often depended on the reliability and precision of this equipment. These repairs were not merely routine maintenance, they were acts of preparation that could determine whether a family would have enough food and resources to thrive in the coming months. Alongside repairs, the crafting of new gear was a vital part of winter's end. Arrows were fletched with feathers chosen for their aerodynamic qualities, each one carefully attached to ensure the arrow would fly true. Baskets indispensable for gathering and storing food were woven from reeds, bark, and other natural materials, with old baskets being repaired and new ones created to replace those worn out by the previous year's use. Clothing, too, was a focus. Hides that had been tanned and softened during the coldest months were now cut and sewn into moccasins, tunics, and leggings, providing protection and comfort for the changing weather ahead. These activities were more than chores, they were opportunities for teaching, learning, and strengthening family bonds. Parents and elders took time to guide children's hands, demonstrating how to split reeds for weaving, how to tie strong and reliable knots, and how to shape arrowheads from stone or bone. Through these lessons, children absorbed not only the technical skills necessary for survival, but also the values of patience, resourcefulness, and deep respect for the materials provided by the land. The act of making and mending was a living classroom, where knowledge was passed down through demonstration and repetition, ensuring the continuity of essential skills from one generation to the next. As darkness fell and the day's work was set aside, evenings became a time for stories and shared wisdom. Elders, revered as the keepers of tradition, gathered the young around the fire to recount the ways of the ancestors. These stories were rich with practical knowledge, how to read the subtle signs of animal tracks in the snow, how to predict the weather by observing the movement of clouds or the behavior of birds, and how to identify the first edible plants that would emerge once the snow melted. The oral tradition was not just a form of entertainment, it was a vital educational tool, a living library that preserved the collective knowledge and experience of the community. Through these stories, each generation learned to understand the rhythms of the seasons, the habits of local wildlife, and the strategies for finding food and shelter in a changing environment. The lessons embedded in these tales could mean the difference between hardship and abundance, and their retelling reinforced the values of resilience, adaptability, and respect for the natural world. As the days slowly lengthened and the cold began to wane, the community came together for ceremonies that marked the transition from winter to spring. These rituals of renewal and gratitude were held outdoors, often in the lingering snow, and involved the participation of the entire village. Ceremonies might include dances that mimicked the movements of animals, songs that called for the return of the sun and the awakening of the earth, and offerings made to the spirits of the land and the ancestors. People adorned themselves with natural pigments, painting their faces with symbols of hope and protection, and arranged feathers in their hair to honor the birds, whose return signaled the changing season. Special foods, prepared from the last of the winter stores, were shared among all, reinforcing the bonds of kinship and community. These gatherings were not only spiritual observances, but also social events that reaffirmed shared responsibilities, celebrated survival, and expressed collective hopes for successful hunts, bountiful harvests, and continued harmony with the land. In the quieter moments, families gathered by the fire to reflect on the winter that was ending. These were times for remembrance and gratitude, moments to honor the hardships endured, such as nights of hunger, illness, or the loss of loved ones, and to acknowledge the strength and resilience that had carried them through. Some families held small tokens or amulets carefully carved from bone, wood, or stone, each one imbued with personal meaning, symbols of hope, protection, or wish for the coming season. These objects were often passed down through generations, serving as tangible reminders of perseverance and the enduring support of family and community. Such moments of contemplation fostered unity and healing, helping individuals and families to process their experiences and prepare mentally and emotionally for the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. The act of remembering and giving thanks was as important as any physical preparation, reinforcing the values of perseverance, gratitude, and mutual support. Every task undertaken in these final weeks of winter was an investment in the future. Children, under the watchful eyes of elders, learned to sew moccasins and tunics from soft tanned hides, practicing stitches that would one day become second nature. Young adults took on the responsibility of preparing seed bundles, carefully sorting and counting seeds saved from the previous year's harvest. These seeds were chosen for their hardiness and suitability to local conditions, representing the community's accumulated agricultural knowledge. The process of preparing for planting was meticulous. Seeds were bundled according to type and use, and plans were made for the first sowing as soon as the ground thawed. Each stitch in a garment, each seed set aside for planting, was a promise to the next season, a tangible commitment to the ongoing cycle of life, renewal, and the well-being of future generations. As the sun climbed higher in the sky and the days grew noticeably longer, a sense of hope and anticipation filled the air. The first signs of spring, patches of earth emerging from beneath the melting snow, streams beginning to flow with fresh cold water, and the return of birds whose songs had been absent all winter, were greeted with joy and gratitude. These changes were more than just shifts in the weather, they signaled a profound renewal of spirit, community, and the enduring connection to the land. The transition from winter to spring was a time to celebrate survival, to honor the traditions that had sustained the people through the coldest months, and to look forward with hope and determination to the abundance and challenges of the new season. It was a reaffirmation of the community's resilience, adaptability, and deep-rooted relationship with the natural world, a relationship that had been carefully nurtured through generations of preparation, cooperation, and respect. For Native American communities, winter was not simply a season to endure, but a profound and recurring teacher that shaped every aspect of life. The arrival of winter required months of meticulous preparation, with families working together to gather and preserve food, such as drying meat, berries, and roots, and storing them in carefully constructed caches to prevent spoilage. Clothing was crafted from animal hides, often layered and tailored for maximum warmth, and reinforced with fur and sinew to withstand the biting cold. Teepees and other shelters were not only reinforced with extra insulation, such as additional layers of hides or bark, but also strategically positioned to shield against prevailing winds and drifting snow. These preparations demanded foresight and planning, as a single miscalculation could mean hardship or even disaster during the long, harsh months. Winter also fostered a deep sense of community, as survival was a collective effort. Families and extended kin groups pooled resources, shared food, and supported one another, with elders passing down vital knowledge and stories that preserved both practical skills and cultural identity. Innovation flourished as each group developed specialized tools, like snow goggles to prevent snow blindness or double-walled teepees for extra warmth, tailored to their unique environment. Above all, winter instilled humility and respect for the natural world, teaching that survival depended on working with, rather than against, the forces of nature. The wisdom and stories passed down through generations were as essential as any tool or garment, ensuring that each new winter was met with both knowledge and confidence, and that the community's legacy of resilience would endure. The lessons learned from winter survival form a powerful and enduring legacy, one built on adaptation, respect, and a deep partnership with the land. Elders played a crucial role in teaching children how to craft snowshoes from flexible wood and animal sinew, a skill that enabled travel across deep snow for hunting, gathering, and communication between camps. The process of making snowshoes was itself a lesson in resourcefulness, requiring knowledge of which woods were both strong and light, and how to weave sinew for maximum durability. Children also learned to prepare pemmican, a high-energy food made from dried meat, rendered fat, and berries, which could be stored for months and provided essential nutrition when fresh food was scarce. The making of pemmican involved not only culinary skill, but also an understanding of food preservation, nutrition, and the importance of efficient resource use. Winter clothing, often made from multiple layers of animal hides and decorated with intricate beadwork or quillwork, was designed for both warmth and cultural expression. The process of tanning hides, sewing garments, and adding decorative elements was a communal activity that reinforced identity and tradition. These skills were not just about surviving the cold. They were about thriving, maintaining health, and living in harmony with the environment, no matter how severe the winter became. The transmission of these skills from one generation to the next ensured that the community remained strong, adaptable, and deeply connected to its heritage. True resilience, as practiced by Native Americans, was rooted in a profound understanding of the land and its rhythms. Survival depended on the ability to read subtle signs in the environment, such as the direction of animal tracks, the thickness of ice on rivers, or the changing patterns of wind and snow, knowing where to find natural shelters, how to track game through deep snow, and when to anticipate storms was essential knowledge, often acquired through years of observation and experience. Gathering firewood, for example, was a complex task that required knowledge of which tree species burned hottest and longest, how to identify dead wood that would ignite easily, and how to collect wood in a way that preserved the health of the forest for future generations. Even the act of stepping outside the teepee was guided by generations of accumulated wisdom, knowing how to dress, how to move quietly to avoid startling game, and how to leave minimal impact on the land. This deep environmental literacy was not only practical but also spiritual, reinforcing the belief that humans were part of a larger web of life, responsible for maintaining balance and harmony with the world around them. These traditions form a living library of sustainable wisdom, built not from paper and ink, but from the collective memory, experience, and community of generations. Each story told by the fire, each skill demonstrated by an elder, and each lesson learned through experience, is a chapter in the ongoing book of survival. The knowledge of how to make a warm garment, how to find edible plants beneath the snow, or how to interpret the warning signs of an approaching blizzard has been refined and preserved over countless winters. The intricate beadwork on a coat or the careful stitching of a moccasin is more than mere decoration. It is a record of identity, history, and adaptation, with each pattern and symbol carrying meaning and memory. This living library is constantly updated, as each generation adds its own experiences and innovations, ensuring that the wisdom of the past remains relevant and vital for the future. The ingenuity required for winter survival reflects a worldview that recognizes intelligence, spirit, and interconnectedness in all things. Building a shelter was a sophisticated process, involving not just the assembly of materials, but a deep understanding of wind patterns, snow accumulation, and the insulating properties of different natural resources. Teepees, for example, were designed with adjustable smoke flaps to regulate airflow and temperature, and their conical shape helped shed snow and resist strong winds. Tools and clothing were crafted with meticulous care, using every part of the animal and plant, ensuring that nothing was wasted and that each item served multiple purposes. The process of making these items was often communal, with family members working together and sharing techniques, stories, and songs. This legacy of resourcefulness and creativity continues to inspire, demonstrating how necessity can drive innovation and how collaboration can overcome even the most daunting challenges. The skills and knowledge developed for winter survival are a testament to the adaptability and ingenuity of Native American peoples, and they remain relevant in today's world as models of sustainable living and community resilience. This legacy also encompasses a profound spiritual bond with the earth, a relationship built on respect, gratitude, and deep understanding. The land was not merely a backdrop for survival, but an active partner, offering resources, guidance, and inspiration. Sacred symbols carved into wood, painted on hides, or sewn into garments served as reminders of this connection, each one telling a story of the people's relationship with the land, the animals, and the spirits that inhabit the world. Rituals and ceremonies held during winter honored these relationships, expressing gratitude for the gifts of the earth and seeking guidance for the challenges ahead. Even the snow itself, with its endless variety of snowflakes, was seen as both a gift and a challenge, shaping daily life, spiritual beliefs, and artistic expression. The act of brushing snow from a sacred symbol or watching a snowflake land on a beaded garment was a moment of reflection, a reminder of the beauty and fragility of life, and the importance of living in harmony with the world. The stories of winter camps are timeless examples of human potential, adaptability, and harmony with the natural world. They remind us that true strength is found in unity, that wisdom grows from experience and observation, and that resilience is achieved by living with, rather than against, the forces of nature. These traditions continue to inspire, offering not only practical lessons in survival, but also deeper insights into how to thrive, together, in balance with the earth and with respect for the wisdom of those who came before. The legacy of resilience, forged in winter, endures, inviting us all to learn from the past and to carry forward the values of community, ingenuity, and reverence for the natural world. As our journey through the heart of winter draws to a close, we are invited to reflect more deeply on the extraordinary ingenuity, resilience, and unity that define Native American life during the coldest months of the year. Every night spent within the protective embrace of a tent, every meal shared around a crackling fire, was not only a means of survival, but a profound expression of the interconnectedness between people, land, and tradition. These moments were about more than just keeping warm. They were about sustaining a way of life that honored the earth, respected the cycles of nature, and preserved the wisdom passed down through generations. The tents themselves, often constructed from animal hides such as buffalo or deer, and supported by sturdy wooden poles, were engineered with remarkable skill. Their conical or domed shapes allowed them to shed snow and resist fierce winter winds, while smoke holes and adjustable flaps provided essential ventilation and temperature control. Inside, families would gather close, sharing not only physical warmth, but also stories, songs, and teachings that reinforced the bonds essential for survival and cultural continuity. The foresight to prepare, the wisdom to adapt, and the spirit to endure. These qualities filled winter's longest nights with hope and meaning. Preparation for winter began months in advance. Families would work together to hunt and preserve meat, dry berries and roots, and gather nuts and seeds. Fish were often smoked or dried, and corn was stored in woven baskets or underground caches to protect it from moisture and pests. Firewood was collected and stacked in large quantities, ensuring a steady supply for both warmth and cooking. Elders, revered for their experience and knowledge, played a crucial role in teaching younger generations how to interpret subtle changes in the weather, track animal movements through snow, and identify edible plants that could be found even in the depths of winter. In the hush of falling snow, families gathered to share stories, oral histories, legends, and practical lessons, passing down not only knowledge but also values such as respect for nature, the importance of sharing, and the necessity of perseverance in the face of hardship. These stories and daily practices were not just about surviving the winter, but about thriving, about finding warmth, meaning, and joy even in the coldest and darkest times. Through cooperation and creativity, Native American communities transformed winter's challenges into opportunities for growth, learning, and celebration. Children learned by participating in daily chores such as fetching water from frozen streams, gathering kindling, or helping to repair clothing and tools. Adults worked together to prepare nourishing meals from stored provisions, combining dried berries, corn, beans, and smoked fish or meat into hearty stews and breads. Special winter gatherings, often held in the largest lodges or communal spaces, featured music, dance, and storytelling. These events were not only a source of entertainment, but also a vital means of reinforcing social bonds, sharing news, and maintaining a sense of hope and unity during the long winter months. The lessons of winter, resourcefulness, gratitude, and togetherness, echo through generations, shaping the character and culture of Native American peoples. Elders would demonstrate how to make warm clothing from animal hides, using sinew for stitching and decorating garments with intricate beadwork or quillwork. They taught the art of crafting snowshoes, which allowed for easier travel across deep snow, and the repair of tools essential for hunting, fishing, and daily life. These skills were not only practical but also deeply symbolic, connecting each generation to their ancestors and to the land itself. Gratitude was expressed through rituals and ceremonies, such as offering thanks for a successful hunt or sharing food with those in need. These traditions fostered a sense of belonging and mutual support, ensuring that no one faced the winter alone, and that the community as a whole remained strong and resilient. Let this wisdom settle in, like a comforting blanket for your own life. May you carry forward the spirit of resilience, the warmth of community, and the quiet strength that comes from honoring both tradition and change. Just as Native American families found peace in the stillness of winter nights, listening to the wind, watching the stars, and sharing gentle songs, we too can find comfort in moments of reflection and togetherness. Whether facing literal cold or the metaphorical winters of life, these lessons remind us to draw strength from our communities, to adapt with grace and creativity, and to find meaning even in adversity. As you rest tonight, may the enduring echo of winter's wisdom inspire you to find peace in stillness, courage in adversity, and joy in the company of others. Just as the snow muffles the world outside, creating a quiet sanctuary, let these teachings offer you a sense of calm and reassurance. Remember that every challenge can be met with resourcefulness, that every hardship is easier when faced together, and that gratitude and generosity are the foundations of a strong and enduring community. There is nothing more to do tonight. Good night, and may the wisdom of winter guide you always. As the stars wheel overhead and the world grows quiet, let the stories and lessons of those who came before bring you comfort, strength, and hope for the days ahead.